Hello, welcome back to Shrewsbury Film Society Online. Our choice of film this time is An Autumn Afternoon, this one, from 1962, which was the last film made by the great Japanese director Yasujiro Ozu. The original title of this film, in Japanese in fact, translates as something like The Taste of Mackerel Pike, which the booklet accompanying the DVD release from 2011 helpfully explains is a dish widely eaten by ordinary people in Japan, and one that happens to taste best in the autumn itself. The film is very much part of what the Japanese call the shomingeki genre, which means, roughly speaking, films that are about ordinary people. This was the genre that Ozu specialised in, and he's probably still best known for his 1953 film Tokyo Story, a gentle and moving tale of two parents disappointed that their grown-up children cannot make time for them when they come to visit the big city. In his wonderful book, The Biographical Dictionary of the Cinema, David Thompson writes, "There's an easy joke. Nobody can tell one Ozu film from another. But is that a failing or a virtue?" For me, as for Thompson, it's definitely a virtue. Ozu did keep making superficially similar films about middle-class family life, largely set indoors, with very similar camera setups, with a regular roster of actors who appeared in many of them, and with a distinctive editing style that emphasised little camera movement and much emphasis on empty corridors and other visual pauses. Although he is now regarded as one of the greatest of all film directors, this recognition came very late in his career. Even a decade before his death in 1963, his films were generally considered to be too slow and too uneventful for wide audiences, and he himself expressed the view that his subject matter was too provincial to travel far outside Japan. The current wisdom, however, is that Ozu did something very special. By eschewing flashy camera work, avoiding melodrama or rhetoric, he was able to focus remarkably intensely on his characters, on their emotions, and on the gaps between them. An Autumn Afternoon isn't really about any particular afternoon, but it's about the autumn of an older man's life. And there is reference to autumn in the song we hear, but we do not see school children singing towards the later part of the film. I don't think I'm giving anything away when I say the film is largely about the father's concerns about the marriage prospects of his daughter, and his parallel concern that she's too willing to sacrifice marriage in order to look after him. Much of the film is concerned with the minutiae of everyday life, and about how small changes can lead to big changes of opinion and action. Characteristically, in this film, Ozu dwells on the small and he avoids the big. For example, we never do see the baseball game that looms large near the start of the film, nor do we see the wedding near the end. This film, like many of his others, is punctuated by outdoor, largely static shots of urban landscapes and factories, and with the occasional train movement marking the passing of time. I don't know if it's a coincidence that in this one the train crosses the screen almost exactly halfway through the film, in fact. Ozu does not, however, dwell on the small scale at the expense of the bigger picture. In a barroom sequence about 45 minutes into the film, for instance, he suggests that he himself was relieved that Japan was not on the winning side in World War II. And at other points, the characters' discussions of vacuum cleaners, golf clubs, refrigerators, all suggest a gentle critique of the emerging consumer culture in the Japan of the early 1960s. Facing difficulties and coping with disappointments, especially when linked to the relationships between generations, is probably the strongest theme that runs through Ozu's films, which is maybe surprising because he himself actually remained single throughout his life, had no children of his own, and lived with his mother until she died just 2 years before he himself died. Ozu's later films are as far as you can get from the superheroes and special effects of mainstream cinema, although he did in fact make some early Hollywood-style gangster films in the 1930s. If you can adjust to his pace, his gentleness, and his modest, unassertive concern for his characters, I think you'll be richly rewarded by An Autumn Afternoon, and by any other of his late films, in fact. We hope you enjoy this one, and we look forward to discussing it with you on Zoom fairly soon.